Matt Miguez has plenty on his mind, and he's ready to share it with the world. It's time to hear the Miguez Mindset.
Welcome into the Miguez Mindset, brought to you by Marucci Clubhouse of Lafayette. Matt Miguez here. College baseball's in the College World Series right now in Omaha. LSU season has come to an end after falling in the Chapel Hill Regional last week or so. So that means the offseason is underway for Jay Johnson and company. Big transfer portal news, players leaving, players coming in. We'll dive into all of that now with Zach Nagy from LSU Country. Zach, what's going on, bud? How are you?
Not too much, man. Doing good. Obviously, like you said, off season's in full swing, and Jay Johnson's attacking the portal with force. So, kind of navigating this busy time.
Let's start with the big news that actually came out yesterday, and that is that LSU is adding a new ace pitcher to their arsenal in Wofford pitcher Zach Cowan. Went 10-2 last season with a 3.35 ERA, over 100 strikeouts and over 100 innings pitched. You know, the old phrase is if you can't beat them, join them. So LSU's getting some depth there because of that.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Cowan, he's an absolute stud. I had the chance to look over some of his film, watch a couple of his games last night, and he has a pretty impressive arsenal of pitches to throw. And like you said, it was 124 strikeouts and 110 innings pitched. So numbers don't lie, and he's certainly impressive. And Jay Johnson goes out and he gets a true ace right now. And we saw him dominate the mid-major level last year on a Wofford program that ultimately punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament. And now he makes his way over to the SEC and has a chance to be a key contributor in an LSU pitching staff that really is kind of wide open right now. You have a couple of guys like, we'll see if Griffin Herring returns. You have Cade Anderson. Now you add Zach Cowan into the mix. So you got a lot of guys right here, and he has the opportunity to come to Baton Rouge and really step into the mix and make an immediate impact for this program.
And the thing that's interesting about Cowan is, like you mentioned, the ability for him to come into the SEC now and be able to contribute at an even higher level for a group that has had success bringing in transfer portal pitchers. You bring in Paul Skeens, he becomes the National Player of the Year, #1 overall pick in the MLB draft. You bring in Luke Holman. Granted, he came from SEC to SEC, but still had more success at LSU than I would argue that he had at Alabama. And then Gage Jump is a similar story as well. Talk to me about where Cowan fits in now that Holman's gone and Gage Jump likely gone as well.
Yeah, like you said, the proof's in the product. You brought in a trio of guys over the last 2 years that have made an immediate impact. And like you said, Paul Skeens, Luke Holman, and Gage Jump. All those guys came in, and right when they got to Baton Rouge, they were weekend starters. Obviously, Luke Holman was expected to be your Friday night guy, but ultimately Gage Jump kind of surpassed him and was a pretty impressive guy this season. So you had two guys who could have been Friday night caliber players, and now you fast forward to this upcoming season in 2025, and what Zach Cowan can do is really step into the mix as a Saturday or Sunday guy. If Griffin Herring stays, Jay Johnson's basically penciled him in as a weekend starter already. So those are two capable players in the mix already. And a lot of people anticipate Cade Anderson, who's a true freshman this season, to take that next step. So if you were to ask me what I see in Zach Cowan next season, barring any big-time additions over the next couple of weeks, which you'll likely see one or two, I expect Wofford's ace to step in here and be a weekend starter next season, of course.
And you also have Chase Shores, who missed the entire season with injury, had a really promising start to his freshman campaign, but has missed the last year and a half or so.
And Jay Johnson believes that could be the best pitcher in the rotation.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have 4 to 5 capable guys. So the pitching arsenal is going to be extremely deep going into next season.
And then Jay added another transfer portal addition in Indiana State catcher Luis Hernandez. Spent most of his time as designated hitter this season for the Sycamores. Batted .359 with 23 homers and 76 runs batted in. Just a monster season at the plate. When you're losing guys like Hayden Travinsky and Tommy White, you needed a guy to just step into the lineup.
And you got that. This is a guy he's a true Swiss Army knife. He's really done it all for Indiana State. He's played catcher. He's played in the infield. He's played DH. He's done it all for that program over the last 3 years. And his first 2 seasons at Indiana State were impressive, but year 3 was where he really took that jump to the next level. Like you said, 23 homers, 359 batting average, 76 RBIs. And it was something that he burst on the scene rather quickly. And that Indiana State program it has a couple of standouts, and he was obviously the cream of the crop guy. And you needed to add some power to the lineup. This is a significant addition for Jay Johnson in the program. And like you said, kind of just reiterating what you mentioned with Hayden Trubinsky and Tommy White gone, you needed to add some power here and there. And who knows? Jared Jones is a draft eligible sophomore. So if he gets a round 3, round 4 grade, he could very well be out of the program as well. So now you're adding a guy who can step into the mix and make an impact in a lineup that is going to need a heavy hitter like himself.
And then the other addition is South Florida relief pitcher Chandler Dorsey. The 6'4 junior is coming in with a 3.60 ERA, 41 strikeouts, 8 saves in 30 innings pitched for the Bulls. Again, never a bad thing to go into the portal and add some depth to the bullpen.
Completely agreed. And he was a guy who came on campus last week, took a visit, and Jay Johnson secured him rather quickly. He came out as the first commitment of the transfer portal class this offseason, and he's a spectacular relief pitcher. For South Florida last year, he had 8 saves, 2-1 record. Just a really impressive guy. And LSU's gonna have no shortage of arms this year, or next year rather. Obviously, they've lost a handful of pitchers already, but Jay Johnson's going out, and he's certainly adding some true talent through the portal right now. And fall ball is going to be important to let these guys get into their groove, get into the mix. But fast forwarding all the way to next spring, I see no issues with this pitching group right now, especially with the addition of Dorsey. You put in Cowan, and you're probably going to see 1, 2, maybe even 3 more guys enter the mix in the next couple of weeks.
And then, on the other side of that coin, LSU's had a lot of players leave the program. 9 players have entered the portal. Some names that you might not know: Derek Mitchell, Austin Rolling, and then you've got some bigger name guys: Micah Bucknam, Aiden Moffitt, Sam Dutton, Paxton Kling, who was supposed to have a ton of promise in this LSU program. But Zach, I want to get your opinion, because to me, I don't think that there's a bigger loss than Cam Johnson, who was a highly touted freshman. Jay Johnson had to convince him to not go to the draft. He comes in, gets sparing playing time, needed some development, wasn't uber impressive when he did take the field, but you saw the potential there. You saw the opportunity for growth, if he just stuck with the program, but he has decided to move on and go somewhere else. Talk to me about the players that have left and who you find to be the biggest loss.
I'll kind of detail that, Cam Johnson, you were sitting there talking about for a while. And I had the opportunity to talk to his dad last summer when he made the decision to ultimately come to LSU and live up to that commitment that he made. Cam's a spectacular talent, and he's one of those players who the ceiling is just, there is none. He can go as high as you want. He has an incredible fastball, decent arsenal. He couldn't put it all together in year 1 with the program, but like you said, I mean, it's all about the potential that he had. And he's decided to make a move to go elsewhere after a inefficient showing in year 1 of his college career. But he's a guy who, whoever gets him, whether it's Florida State, I mean, you go down the list, there's so many programs that are going to be, ringing that phone line. They're going to get a true good one. This is a guy who has just limitless potential, and it'll be exciting to see where he ultimately ends up. But for me, I'm obviously going to circle Paxton Kling, and a lot of LSU fans are going to sit back and be like, he couldn't hit a beach ball. And for me, it's kind of like, yes, he couldn't hit a beach ball, but his defensive instincts are something that are hard to teach. He's extremely fast. He runs the base as well. And Jay Johnson had a lot of trust in him in late inning situations. He would always come in late, play in the outfield. He would use him as a pinch runner at times. And eventually, if he can piece together this inefficient hitting that he showcased his first 2 years of college, he can get that together. This is a guy who will get drafted very, very high in the coming years. So intrigued to see where he ends up. But for me, Paxton Kling's a guy who his departure is one that I'm looking at. And I understand it, but it's one that I look at as a pretty decent loss, even though you have Jake Brown and Ashton Larson as youngsters in the outfield. I still like what Paxton Kling brought to the table if he can ultimately get this hitting situation in order.
Jay Johnson going to be looking to add tons of more talent to the LSU roster for the 2025 season. Zach Nagy of LSU Country joining us here on the Miguez Mindset, brought to you by Marucci Clubhouse of Lafayette. Zach, really appreciate your time, man. Tell our viewers where they can find your work.
Yeah, we're pumping out content like crazy right now. It's a super busy off season, and LSU Country on Sports Illustrated is where you can find us. You can find me on Twitter at @ZNavy20. You can go on the LSU Country page at LSU Country_FN. We got a lot of stuff going right now. It's a busy off season with football recruiting, camps, baseball transfer portal, and you name it. We'll start to begin pumping out some previews for the LSU football season this fall, but busy times right now, and you can check us out wherever.
Zach, really appreciate your time, man. For our listeners, make sure you subscribe to our social media channels at ESPN_SWLA and subscribe to the YouTube channel at ESPN Southwest Louisiana. We'll be back next week talking more of the Houston Astros, LSU Tigers, and more here on the Miguez Mindset, brought to you each and every week by Marucci Clubhouse of Lafayette on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette, 104.1 Charleston.